So, in today's lesson, you'll learn how to draw trend lines like a pro. Now, some of you might be wondering, but Rayner, why should I draw trend lines? What's the point of it? What's the use? Well, a few things, right? If you know how to draw trend lines, right, number one is that sometimes the market may not really respect the support resistance that you're drawing. It tends to respect trend lines better. Okay, so this is where, context of the market plays a part. There are times where, your support resistance tool is just not as useful compared to drawing trend lines. You find that trend lines are more accurate, right, given the particular context of the market that you're trading. So it's better to know how to draw both trend lines and support resistance. Number two, trend lines help you to identify the long-term trend. So this is quite a no-brainer. If you know that the long-term trend is up, you want to be a buyer because it would naturally, increase the probability of your trades working out. So a trend line helps you to identify the long-term trend, whether it's a long-term uptrend or a long-term downtrend. And finally, trend line helps you to better time your entries and exits. Okay, so if you can identify the market respecting a long-term uptrend, then it makes sense, right, to be buying as close as possible near the trend line because this offers you, right, a much more favorable risk to reward. Okay, you can see that. You can imagine, right, if you buy near the trend line, your stop loss is going to be much tighter compared to buying when the price is far away from the trend line, where your stop loss needs to be much larger. And when the pullback comes, when the retracement comes, chances are you're going to be stopped out. So buying near the trend line offers, right, a much more favorable risk to reward on your trades. So now the question is, how do you draw trend lines? Okay, so that's what I'm going to cover right now. But first, if this is the first time you're watching this video, here's what I want you to do. Hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. The button is below. Hit the button and the thumbs up button. The subscribe button and the thumbs up button. This way, whenever I publish a new video, you'll always be updated. Okay? So let's get started. First thing, this is how not to draw a trend line. Why? What is wrong with this? Well, the reason being is that there's just way too many trend lines on this chart. Which trend line should you pay attention to? Well, there's just way too many. It gives you analysis paralysis, okay? So it doesn't make sense to be drawing your trend lines like this. So instead, if you follow this simple framework that I'm about to share with you, right? Trust me, your charts will look much cleaner and nothing near this one over here. So here's how you do it. Number one, you want to define your time frame that you're drawing your trend line. For example, if you are a trader trading off the daily time frame, then it makes sense to be drawing it on the daily time frame. It doesn't make sense to be drawing your trend lines on the 15 minutes, the 30 minutes, or the 1 hour time frame because it's irrelevant to your trading needs. Your trading needs is on a daily time frame. That is your entry time frame. You want to be drawing it on the daily time frame. And optional, if you want to draw a little bit more lines, you can refer it to the weekly time frame, just one time frame higher. But right, you don't want to go down to a lower time frame to draw your trend line. Always define your time frame first and draw your trend line based on the time frame that you have defined for yourself. Number two, you want to zoom out your charts because, when you look at a chart, sometimes, it's very easy to get caught up in the current price action, like, what is happening in the now. But if you take a step back, right, you can see that the price action, right, it's much more obvious, right, when you take a step back. So this is why you want to zoom up your charts. You want to see the big picture and where you are in the grand scheme of things. So zoom up can be a little bit subjective, but my advice is to have at least 300 bars on your chart. Depending on the screen you are trading from, right? A trader on a 20-inch screen and a trader on a 50-inch screen, right? The zoom up can really be very different. So to be objective here, I would say at least 300 bars on your chart. And number three, you want to draw trend lines that connect at least two major swing points. As you know, right, to draw a trend line, you need at least 2 points. And the way I do it is that I want to connect the two major swing points. This means that the minor swing points, I tend to not really pay much attention to it compared to the major swing points. Because the major swing points are the ones that really, help you define the significant long-term trends. Those trend lines, right? Those are the ones that you want to be paying attention to because they are obvious, they are significant. The minor ones, probably if you go down to the lower time frame, they will be more obvious if you are trading the lower time frame, but on the time frame that you're trading on, if those minor swing points, you can tend to treat it as secondary. And finally, you want to adjust your trend line to get as many touches as possible, kind of like making your trend line curve fit the price data that you have. Okay, so you want to adjust it to get as many touches as possible, whether it's the body or whether it's the wick. So I'll walk you through a few examples so you see how this works out. So first thing first, okay, so let's assume that I'm going to define my time frame as the daily time frame. So this is the daily. Okay. So remember, I said to zoom out your chart. So let me just reset the chart. And I typically you zoom out, let's say 5 times, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you can see that clearly, right? The information that is presented to you is so much different compared to, when the chart is zoomed in. Okay, you see again, right? This is zoom in, all right, and you zoom out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So about at least 300 bars on your screen. More, it's fine. So you can see that right now the market, right? It's clearer because you are looking at it from a bird eye view. Next thing, right, you want to do is to draw your trend line. So remember I said that, you want to connect the major swing points. So from here I can see this is a major swing point, this is one, and this is all major swing points. Okay, so let me just walk you through this. Let me just draw and explain to you what is a major swing points. Major swing points, right, are levels, areas on your chart that, one look at it, bam, it's in your face. It's like in your face, that kind. If you're looking, let me see, is this a major swing point, is it? It's probably not a major swing point. You want in your face. That is what I mean by a major swing point. So this is in my face, in my face, in my face, in my face, this, and this. Obvious, right? So you can see that all the minor one, this one here, squint my eyes, I can look at it. All these are minor swing points. Not interested. You only want to focus on the major swing points. Okay, so let's see how to do it. Okay, so again, connect. I said, right, minimum is 2. So clearly this one, I'm not going to draw from this to this because the trend line is clearly going to be invalidated, right? I mean, it's just one look at it. Maybe before this price action occurred, before this price action, I would have drawn it in this way. But now I can see what happened, right? I would draw it in a way that, best fit the current market context. So you can see that I can actually draw it like this, okay? So there's 1 touch over here and 2 touch. But if I do that, okay, I'll be ignoring this portion here and this portion over here. And if you remember, right, I said I would adjust my trend lines to get the most number of touches to curve fit, right, the current price data. So what I'll do is I'll adjust the trend line up a little bit higher to this. In fact, I would even like this, okay? So there's 1 touch over here, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You can see there's 5 touches now over here to draw this trend line. And this is how I would go about doing it for this dollar Canadian. So that's how you draw a trend line. Another tip to share with you is that you can actually use this function, just click on this, copy paste the trend line, right? And you can actually just push it out slightly higher. In this case, it's an uptrend, right? And you notice that you can now draw your trend line as a zone. So you see previously, right, it's kind of like just a mind trick, right? Previously, you look at this trend line, your mind wouldn't really look at this as an area, but if you copy paste that trend line, now you treat it as an area, and it might help you, right? Especially for those of you who tends to, wait for the best absolute prices, right? Again, you can just curve fit it a little bit, right? And now you can treat this whole area as a trend line area instead of an area instead of a line on the chart, right? So this is an area of value on your chart, okay? So in this example, just additional tip, right? You can also Control-C, Control-V again, because I also noticed that it's a trend channel. Okay, so just shift it up higher. The way I do the trend channel is the same thing. I want to get as many touches as possible. So I'll do it, right? So if I notice that if I put it too close over here, right, I got quite a number of touches over here. 1, 2, okay, but here gets invalidated because the price breaks out and goes back in. This one breaks out, goes back in. This one breaks out, goes back in. But remember, we can treat this as an area. So just Control-C, Control-V, right? And you now have another potential area on your charts, which is this portion over here. So now you just zoom out a little bit. You can see that right now, you know where is the area of value on your chart, right? The lower portion of the trend line, that is an area of value. And when the price reaches the upper trend channel, you know that those are those are price points that you don't want to be buying, because the market could possibly reverse from the upward trend channel about here. Okay, so this is how you draw a trend line. Another example, dollar yen. Okay, same thing, right? I reset my chart, I zoom in 5 times, about 300 bars or so. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what I'm seeing over here is possibly a trend line about this portion here. So you can see that, if I were to take this extreme about here, right, this trend line is just going to end, let's say, at this point. Okay, so this is why I'm not concerned, right, with the extreme highs and lows. What I'm only concerned is to make the trend line best fit, right, given the current price data. So I'm not going to start from this low. What I'll do instead, So I'll curve it to get as many touches as possible. And if I were to start here, I know I can get more touches. Okay, so you can see over here I get 1, 2, 3, and 4 touch. I would rather, go with this trend line instead, right? I got 4 touches over here. And once again, right, a tip for you guys to treat this as a zone, you can just Control C, Control V, and this over here, right, will be your trend line area on your charts. Okay, so this is for a dollar yen. How about another one? Dollar against the Indian rupee. Same thing. So what I'm seeing over here, again, this is already the zoomed out version. Connect the major swing points, right? If it makes sense, if it doesn't matter. You want to draw the trend line where it, best fit the current price data. So from here, again, right, I will not. There's 1 point, 2, and 3 about 3 here. But if you notice, right, I can push it down slightly lower and take into consideration these points as well. So that's what I'll do. I'll put my trend line down lower and connect these recent points as well. And once again, if you want to treat this as an area, make it easy on your eyes. You can just copy paste. And right now, this over here, right, it's an area of value. This is an area where the price, right, has historically, right, bounced off and reverse lower from there. Again, you can do this and make this a trend channel. Just shift this down lower to get as many touches as possible. In this case, all right, over here, like see, I got 1 touch, 2, and 3. Yep, I'm not going to get this, but it's all right. Again, my main concern is to get the most number of touches in this example. Another one, gold, right? So I'm just going to walk you through more examples so you really can see, how the way I do it. So, oops, already drawn, but never mind. Let's look at it with a fresh pair of eyes. Okay, so you can see that previously there would be one over here. Okay, so it doesn't make sense to draw from here to here. This is not a trend line. This is more like a support resistance. So again, draw it and connect the major swing points. So you can see that initially it would have been from here to here. Okay, then the price breaks out and comes back lower. So you can see that whenever the price invalidates a trend line and it reverses back, right, you know that you have to make changes to the trend line. That's the way it is, right? There's a little element of subjectivity to it where the price breaks out by a little bit and then reverse back. So you redraw the trend line. Okay, so in this case I'll redraw it to here, right? And notice that I can get this price action in as well. Okay, so it will look something like this. Then price breaks out, retest, and hit higher. So at this point, this trend line here, it doesn't serve its purpose anymore. So what I do is that whenever the price breaks out of a trend line, it retests and moves far away, I'll just delete the trend line because the purpose has been met. There's no point cluttering my charts with more trend lines that is of no use. So right now, how I would draw the trend lines again, so I'll start with this, alright, this is the major swing point, and I draw out and see if it makes sense. Because sometimes earlier you saw me saying that the major swing points is where I start, but if it doesn't make sense, I would be glad to start at any other point on the charts where as long as I get the most number of touches. In this case, the major swing points, it still holds up. So again, I'll just draw it in this manner. Okay, and I'll shift it down slightly like this. Okay, so again, I have 1 touch, 2, 3, and 4. So right now, price is retesting this trend line again. In fact, there's another secondary trend line. Not sure if you notice it. This is a secondary trend line. Okay, so it's over here. So this is quite simple, right? So from the looks of it, right, generally the market right now is still in an uptrend until it breaks this trend line, until it breaks this area of support. Okay, and when do you know the trend is about to resume itself? Well, the first clue is when the price breaks this secondary trend line. I call this a retracement trend line because this is the retracement move against this uptrend. So the first clue that you'll get that the buyers are back in control is when it breaks above this retracement trend line. So this additional tip for you. Okay, so this for gold. And again, you can just Control C, Control V, draw this as an area if you wish to. Okay, like this. And even for this, you can draw this as an area if you wish to. Okay, so but don't do this overboard, right? It's going to take this to the extreme if you just Control C, Control V your life away. Okay, so use this with some common sense. All right. So in this case, let me just remove this as well. And one last example, Aussie dollar. So this is should be quite fun. Okay, so you can see that over here. Okay, how I would do this, right? If I look at this chart, okay, again, right. Let's say imagine, right, this portion here doesn't exist. So let me just go back in time. The way I do it would probably be like this. Right, start off like this, okay, and then you notice the price breaks out and goes back in. So you have to do some adjustment. So you shift up your trend line slightly above here. Okay, at this point again, price breaks out, goes back down. You could shift it up above here as well. And No, actually you won't. You probably just leave it like that because you would get another touch and this third touch over here. So let's say how I'll do it now is, let's say I draw it like this, right? Okay. And I might even shift it down slightly lower, because you see, if I were to draw it in this manner, I cannot get the touches of, you know, this here, 1, 2, and 3. I'll 4, and even 5. I'll miss all these interesting points. What I'll do is, again, don't have to get so fixated by, you know, drawing from the absolute high or lows. Shift it down lower and get as many touches as possible. So in this case, what I'll do is I'll shift it down lower, bring it up a little bit, okay, and you can see that right now, I got a better fit right now by shifting the trend line. I get, you know, 1 touch, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can see that even here when it retests, right, it's more accurate on the retest as well, right? Here got retest, here another retest, right? So at this point, right, I'm not going to leave this trend line here anymore because it's clearly invalidated. So I would redraw the trend line, but I want to show you how, you know, I adjust it along the way as the market price action evolve. Okay, so now the new trend line that I would draw is, again, right, since this is gone, I'll just leave this here. I'll just remove this. What I'll do is, again, I'll notice that this point here, okay, there's a price respecting it. Okay, I'll just draw this trend line like this. Okay, if I go back in time, can I touch any points? I think I could. I could actually get this point over here. So now this would be the new trend line that I would look at, right? So there's 1 touch, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and I think we could even do this as a trend channel, right? Notice price, you know, bouncing off the lows, so we can just Control C, Control V, right? Try to get a trend channel, something like, if I were to put it something here, okay, so okay, something like that. Okay, so again, at this point, you now can see where is the area of value to trade from, right? This is why I said, you know, trend line, they are useful to help you identify the long-term trend, so-called predict market turning points, better time your entries, etc. So you know that this area over here, right, is where you're gonna look for potential selling opportunities. This is where the market tends to find selling pressure. And if you know the market is near the lows over here of this downward trend line, you don't want to be shorting, because there's a good chance the market can spike up higher, like here, 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 and here. It tends to spike up higher, right, from the near the lows of the trend line. So this gives you a good heads up to say, hey, you want to be careful, man. Don't be shorting near the lows of the trend channel, my friend. Okay, so this is the beauty, the power of trend lines, and I hope, you know, this gives you an insight to how to draw trend lines and, you know, get good trading results from it. So with that said, right, quick recap. Boom, right? Number 1, define your time frame that you're trading. If you're trading on the 1 hour time frame, just, you know, can draw your trend lines on the 1 hour time frame. Second thing, you want to zoom up your charts, at least about 300 bars on the chart. Third thing, draw trend lines that connect at least 2 major swing points. Fourth thing, I tend to adjust it to get as many touches as possible, as you've, you know, seen earlier. And finally, one tip I have for you is, you know, you can copy paste your trend lines to draw it as a zone, so you know that it's an area on your chart and not just a line. Okay, so with that said, I have come towards the end of this video. If you've enjoyed it, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to my YouTube channel, the button is all below, and feedback, comment, just let me know and I'll do my best to help. So with that said, I wish you good luck and good trading. I'll talk to you soon.